The following is a sponsored episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm joined by Prerna Malik all the way from across the ocean in India. And I'm so excited to have you on the show, especially for this topic, Prerna, because it is something that I think everyone is struggling a little bit with right now. All of the AI slop, the AI copy out there. So many people are using AI to write, but it doesn't mean that it's converting, right? And so Perna's here to talk to us about how to make sure how to really stress test your AI copy so that you're not just writing faster, but that the AI copy is actually working for you. So I'm going to introduce her formally in just a second. But first, hey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Very excited to be here.
So excited to have you. Thank you for making the time zones work as well. And for those of you who haven't met Prerna before, she has spent 15 years doing one thing really well, writing words that make people buy without the sleaze, fake countdowns, or only 2 spots left nonsense. She's the conversion strategist and copywriter behind Profitably Yours, formerly Content Bistro, if you recognize her from that former name, where she blends buyer psychology with AI to help online business owners sell more while working less. Prerna has taught close to 1,000 business owners to do the same through her workshops, trainings, and programs like Claude Business Accelerator. These days, she's building custom AI agents, automations, Claude Skills that run the repetitive sales and marketing work for founders at her standard on repeat. So the business keeps earning while they're off living. She'll happily talk you out of a bad launch and into one that funds the life you actually want. I love that. Okay, first of all, before we even get into today's topic, I just have to ask you, what do you think is a telltale sign of a bad launch? I'm just curious your hot take before we get into the topic at hand today.
A telltale sign of a bad launch. I mean,
Mhm.
that a launch I know is not going to work out.
Exactly, because your kind of quip about being able
Yeah.
to talk people out of one.
Yeah.
Is there any telltale sign where you're like, ooh, I know even going into this, this is not going to
Yeah.
work?
All right. I don't have just one. I have a few. So the first is if your offer isn't clear. If your
Mm.
offer isn't clear, I can tell you right now, it's going to be so hard to sell. Even the best copy cannot save a bad offer. So your offer needs to be really, really clear. That's number one. Number two is you've not taken the time to really understand your audience and what it is that they want to hear from you. What is it that they really are struggling with? What is it that they need to know in order to make a decision that they feel good about and not wanting, ask you for a refund later. So spending the time to get to know your audience, that is number two. And number three is where you're just pricing something because you've heard that that's what works. So you're not, again, going back to your offer positioning and your audience, you're not, and of course, your own brand and your own values, you're just chasing an internet trend. You've seen that it works. So you've got, you're like, okay, I should probably do that. Yeah, you're not doing it for the right reasons. And that kind of translates into, the offer you put together and then, the copy you have it created for it and all of that. And I can tell you right off the bat that if you come to me with an offer that's not strong enough or without enough audience research, those definitely would be reasons for me to say, yeah, I don't think we should be launching right now. We need to be spending more time on understanding our audience, strengthening our offer. And then, of course, the third is, well, I just want to launch this because I know it's working. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the worst possible reason to have a launch.
that makes complete sense. And I love that you kind of kicked us off with this sorting of the order of priorities in which you need to tackle something to have a successful launch, because you're right, like great copy doesn't fix a bad offer. And so with today's conversation, assuming someone has a great offer, they have that audience alignment, they've done their research, but they're really struggling with getting their buyer to see the value, right, through their copy. As we discussed earlier, AI now has transformed the landscape. It can write 100 emails in a minute, but you're saying your audience is still going to scroll past every single one. So it's not just about speed and efficiency, right? But it's also about how well something actually performs. So, why do you think that most AI written emails get ignored or fail at conversion? What's the piece that's missing besides the obvious human element?
Well, I'm so glad that you're asking this because I build AI solutions for clients. So I know exactly what's going on in the background. the number one reason why, if you were to just open up Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever LLM you use, and you just ask it to write emails, and you give it some context, of course, because all of us who are using AI now are smart enough to understand that it does need context. So we tell it about, give details about our audience, we give details about our offer, we may even give it some samples of our brand voice, and yet the emails that it would create would not convert. And the reason is not just the usual AI tells, I mean, those are pretty obvious, but the fact that it lacks conversion mechanics based on your buyer. Because most of us give context that isn't deep enough, isn't rich enough. So we need to look at, what it is that our buyers actually need to hear from us. We need to think about the different buyer mindsets, and we need to have a buyer persona that goes beyond demographics and sociographics, but also thinks about what is the decision-making context for them, what are their objection patterns, and then of course what's the buyer mindset there, because you may have one audience persona, but within that persona, I would safely say there would be at least 5 different buyer mindsets at play. And you cannot speak to each one, or you cannot treat each one the same way. And that is where it becomes really clear that the copy that AI is creating for you is fast, but it's not going to fuel those sales for you.
Thank you for breaking down like the different elements of what goes into conversion copy. What I'm hearing from you is that AI copy just tends to be too generalized, right? And you mentioned understanding specific context and going really deep within context, both buying context as well as, their mindset, all these things. Can you actually give an example? I think just for us to land even more with our listeners, can you give an example of something that AI might put out, or maybe that you've even seen in your own client's copy where you're like, okay, that's okay, but it's generic? And then how were you able to infuse some of that deeper or more specific context-based writing to replace that?
All right. So first things first, we need to understand that most buyers, most prospects, when they're reading our copy, they're like like I said, in one of like 4 or 5 different mindsets. So they could be a skimmer, they could be a skeptic who wants to see trust and believability. They could be a calculator where they want to see what's the ROI, what's the real value. They could be a comparer where they want to look at, okay, this is a great offer, this is a great program or a great membership, but I'm also considering A, B, and C. How does this stack up? And then we have what I like to call the corporate buyer, because they need to test, look at whether this would survive, like, say, a decision-making process with someone else, with maybe a business partner, a spouse, or maybe even if they're like an actual corporate buyer, a boss. So all these buyers may have like the same, quote unquote, the same persona. They may all be, 45 to 55. They may all have the same struggles, but they're looking at your copy differently. So that is number one. Number two, like I said, you need to look at decision-making context. You need to look at, what are their objection patterns? What are their past experiences? What really makes them buy? What's their, what are their emotional triggers? So when you have all of this and you create a buyer persona that is really rich, really robust, also takes into account different, the different buying mindsets, and pair it with, of course, what I call my business intelligence library, because that includes your brand voice, apart from your audience details, of course, it also includes your vision, your values, your offers, every single detail about them. You're giving AI, or your, whether, again, whatever LLM you're using, you're giving AI a lot of great resources to lean on to help you write copy that's going to speak to your buyer. But then we also have the conversion element, which is where I have a proprietary framework called RACES, which is relevance, alignment, clarity, conversion, engagement, and specificity. So what RACES does is essentially help you ensure, or help your AI writer to ensure, that the copy that's been created is designed to convert. Because relevance means, does this matter to my buyer right now? Will it address their current situation, their current awareness stage, the mindset that they're in? Alignment is, does it sound like me? Is it, what my readers, what my prospects, what my leads are used to hearing from me? Clarity conversion is this clear and move them forward? Obviously, conversion is it like driving action, is whether it's signing up, buying, whatever. And engagement, would someone actually want to read this? Not should they read this, but would they want to read this? Would they want to forward it? Would they want to save it? Would they obviously want to take action on it? And then specificity. Is it, because, like we talked about earlier, a lot of the AI copy that's created is very general. Specificity is where it really speaks to your audience. So with races, you can ensure that the copy you're writing is not just free of like AI generics and the mediocrity that's floating out there, but is designed to convert. So that kind of is in a nutshell what the process looks like. Mm-hmm. You asked for an example, so this would be best demonstrated on like if we were to like share screens and if I could kind of walk you through, but let me try. So let's say there's this email that AI writes for women in their 40s, 50s who are, struggling with their sleep, their energy, their weight. And the starting, I'm just going to read a few lines, could be, hi friend, in today's fast-paced world, it can be hard to navigate the ever-changing landscape of women's health. When it comes to your energy, your sleep, your weight, the journey can feel overwhelming and exhausting and isolating, especially in your 40s and 50s. Now, on the surface, grammatically, word-wise, everything is fine. It's all okay. But it's got so much, like not just forget the AI tells, but it's not really painting a picture. It's not really pulling the audience in. And it's not speaking to where they're at. So when you run races on AI copy, it would sound something like this. It would say, Tuesday, 3 p.m., you're reading the same paragraph for the third time. For some reason, it looks like your brain has decided to take a walk right now. You slept badly again. You're eating the way you're supposed to, and your last blood work came back normalish. Your doctor said you're fine, but you're not fine. You're also not imagining it. This isn't aging you have to accept. It isn't discipline you're missing. Lord knows you're disciplined. Your body changed the rules on you and forgot to tell you. So it's relevant, it's aligned to them, it's clear, it's specific, it's got engagement, it's building a story. So this is just like a very small example of what optimizing your copy for conversion can do. And the best part is you can actually use AI to do this for you. So even if you're a non-writer, you don't have to worry about this. Like if you can install my conversion editor filter, like Skill, into your Claude and have it run on autopilot. You can do that automatically. Which reminds me, it's a good time that you can actually go to claudemadeeasy.com and get this for free. It's called Copy Quality Guard, and it's going to run any piece of copy or content that you create through 2 passes. It's going to strip out all of the AI tails, obviously, and then it's going to optimize it for races. So, yeah, it's that simple.
That's incredible. Okay, first of all, what a generous gift. Thank you so much. I personally am very excited. I love any sort of tool that can just be like a second opinion, right? A quick run through. I do the same thing with like my email subject lines. I just always want to make sure like what are some of the telltale, things that I'm missing, not even necessarily the obvious things, like you said, like the obvious AI copy, but also those deeper things that you mentioned, like the specificity, the context. And by the way, that side-by-side example, I found that incredibly helpful, especially that last line and the improved example where you're like, your body changed the rules and forgot to tell you or something. I'm paraphrasing, but I think that is so impactful compared to like, the journey of being in your 40s and 50s, right? So thank you for sharing that. I think that really is going to help it click for a lot of people. So again, if people want to go grab this skill, you're saying they can just download this into their Claude, and you said claudemadeeasy.com, right?
That is right.
Okay, perfect. If you're listening, we're going to make sure that's right below in the show notes. We'll also rewrite the title of the actual skill in the show notes so that it's really easy for you guys to find and download. I'm definitely downloading this ASAP and testing this on every single piece of copy that goes out. Speaking of testing, I'm assuming, or maybe it's in addition to this, Prerna, but you actually have what you call a buyer brain test for every piece of copy that goes out the door. Is this the skill that you're using to do that buyer brain test? Or can you just maybe expand on what you mean by buyer brain test?
Yeah, so a buyer brain test is essentially where you build your buyer persona with these, these five mindsets and with all of these, the six different elements that we talked about. So decision making context, cognitive state, objection patterns, past experience, buying environment, and emotional triggers. That is not a part of this particular skill. This particular skill will function based on the buyer brain that you've built as part of your persona. It is part of my Claude Business Accelerator program, where we
Ooh.
have a business intelligence library builder where you basically work with Claude. It interviews you and it, helps you build a buyer brain for your audience as well. But essentially, you could totally build it on your own as well. It's obviously going to take you more time to do this, but you want to make sure that your buyer brain includes decision making context, cognitive state, objection patterns, past experience, the buying environment, where are they, when are they choosing to make this buying decision? And then, of course, what are their emotional triggers as well? So, as long as you have these six elements and you are speaking to at least 3 to 4 of the 5 buying mindsets, you're golden.
Mm. And when you're talking about building a buyer brain based on a specific persona, if someone is in your business accelerator and they are able to use your ready-made,
Yes.
tool that you've created for this, are they building a different persona for every type of buyer? So do they have multiple buyer brains and then they run their copy through, multiple filters, or is it one universal buyer brain that encompasses like different elements of the people that make up their audience or customer base?
That's a brilliant question, Ellen. So, a lot of our clients inside the accelerator have different audiences. So, they'll have a buyer persona. Let's say, like in my case, for example, I have a client persona for our services, for our messaging and copywriting services. I also have a buyer persona for our AI build services. And
Mm.
then I have a buyer persona for our coaching and consulting services, because all three of them, they may be doing somewhat of the same things, but they all have very different needs. They all have very different buying patterns. They all have very different past experiences. So, yes, you'll have three different personas. But the beauty here is when you build it holistically, AI is going to understand which offer is for which, because you'll also be simultaneously in your business intelligence library building your offer details. You'll be building your what your brand vision is with all of these different offers that you have and the overall business. So when you direct AI to say, okay, say, all right, I want you to write copy for, say, a consulting offer, it would know which buyer to speak to. It would know how that offer ties into them. And that just makes it that much simpler.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. And you help your students, your clients set up this entire thing through the accelerator where it
Yes.
walks them step by step through building this out for their own infrastructure and their own system.
Yes, absolutely. And that's not all. The accelerator actually also gives them 19 of my pre-built business ready skills across 5 divisions of their business. So they get everything from, say, a founder's inbox to manage their inbox, a client growth strategist, a sales pitch architect, an opt-in pay funnel builder, a webinar strategist, finance skills. So we cover 5 different departments across the business. So admin, marketing, sales, finance, and operations. And they get a ready to install AI team. But yes, we do start with building the business intelligence library because what we talked about right at the beginning, without really deep, rich context, any AI tool will end up giving you a lot of content, but that content's not going to convert.
Right. It's not specific enough. And when you were sharing the 6 elements earlier, I don't have them all memorized off the top of my head, but you had said the six
Mhm.
a few times. One of the ones that kind of stood out to me, you said cognitive, and I'm forgetting the second word of that, but that one was new to me. I was really curious, like, can you expand on what that means and maybe even give a specific example related to your business? Like, for example, the buyer persona that you've built around, let's say, the service provider. What is the cognitive element that ties into that persona?
Yeah, so this cognitive state, it's cognitive state, and that's
Okay.
a that's from my buyer psychology background. So essentially, there are two types: system thinking, which is a concept from Daniel Kahneman. It's in his book called Thinking Fast and Slow. So system one thinking is essentially fast, intuitive. This is a quick decision. This is like when you reach for the candy bar at the checkout counter, right? So that's system one thinking. System two thinking is analytical. It's slower. It's deliberate. So you asked for an example. So most of our clients who hire us for messaging, positioning, copywriting services, or even custom AI build services are in system two thinking mode. They are going to analyze their decision. They're going to think carefully. They're going to look at, okay, they're also going to probably be a calculator and a comparer. They're going to see, okay, what's the ROI going to be for this? Have, A, B, and C alternatives. How does this stack up? So that's system two thinking. So when you think about your buyers, you need to think about what's their cognitive state. Are they in system one thinking mode, which is like a quick decision? That's your tripwire buyer, right? They've opted in and you present like a really quick win, easy, no-brainer kind of an offer. And they go, yeah, sure, $7, $9, $19, no problem. But then you have system two thinking. Those are your high ticket buyers generally, where they would be looking at, what's the ROI? How is this going to work out? What's the impact on the business? Do I have to run it past my team? A lot of our clients work with large teams, also may have funding, so they need to run it past the investors and all of that. So that's where system two thinking comes into play.
That's such a great breakdown. And see, this is like, again, I could obsess over buyer psychology all day with someone like you, an expert like you. I think this is like the level of detail that is so overlooked. And so my hope in your listening to this conversation with Prerna is that this kind of illuminates, oh, wow, like this is why my AI copy doesn't A, sound like me, and B, is not working well, because you have never even considered cognitive state, right? And that's something that, again, I'm learning from you in real time. If this is something that you're not actively thinking about, that's just one of 6 elements that has been built into some of these tools Prerna's talked about today. So like if you're not thinking about that in your AI writing, then no wonder it's maybe not optimized the way you're hoping for it to be. So thank you for giving that example. That was super helpful. I'm curious, what kind of outcomes or changes have you seen in your business or in your student or clients' businesses since you started using and teaching how to use AI strategically and intentionally?
Wow. Okay. I have so many examples. So first up, the most recent example is we finished a custom client build for this client who had a 3-panel AI audience focus group built for them. And then they also had a complete copywriting team built for them, which included a sales page copywriter, an email funnel copywriter, and a lead gen copywriter as well. The caveat I'm going to give you here is this was not done to replace the people on their teams. This was done to assist the people on their team. So I'm a big believer in using AI to help our team instead of the whole, I fired my team and replaced them with AI. So
Right.
I don't do that. But anyways, so we built this out for them and we just had our 90-day, meeting with them to go over. We also, continue to work with people we do custom builds with for maintenance, because you want to make sure that the skills and the agents or the assistants are working the way they're supposed to. There's no drift, there's no bloat. So we just had our 90-day meeting with them, and their conversions, their overall funnel conversions have gone up from 2% to 5%, which is a big shift because they have like thousands of people going through their funnels. So plus and here's the best part. The best part is that their team has more time to work on things that only they can do. So filming, making more tutorials, supporting the people in their community. It's so great. So this is like from a custom build perspective of like what's possible. But then we also have folks in our accelerator who've used, like, say, I know at least 5 or 7 of them. So one of them, in fact, she used the sales page architect. She was planning a whole pivot for an offer, and she was able to knock out 2 sales pages all of the back end work and the whole, onboarding sequence, welcome sequence, all of that in like, I think 3 hours is what she said. I have that on the sales page as well. And this whole process would have taken her weeks. Yeah. So that is what, like, my goal with helping people use AI, whether it's through building it for them or showing them, how they can use what I've built, is to help them save time, make more money, improve client experience, or do all three of these. So that's my approach when I go into, AI project, that, okay, what is it that we're looking to accomplish? How can we make this happen?
I love your approach to AI, Prerna. It feels so just like holistic and also feels so good with what you're saying about it's really aiding humans and people to be, even better at the work that they do rather than in place of. So I really agree with your philosophy there. For the listener today who's been intrigued, they're like, okay, here's some additional things I haven't thought about before when utilizing AI for copy, but also you've opened their mind to a lot of other use cases and applications for the possibilities AI can create in their business. If they're unsure where to start, where would you recommend that they begin to really unlock some of these benefits in their business and specifically in their marketing?
So, if you're absolutely new to AI, we've had a lot of AI curious people or AI dubious people like, okay, I don't really think it can help me. Join us in the accelerator. If you're at that stage, I would start by picking at least one tool, deciding on the tool that you want to use, but taking it a step back and saying, okay, what would I want to accomplish with AI? Think about what do you want to accomplish with AI, number one. Number two, take the time to really understand your audience and your buyers. Like that, I feel is huge and will make a big difference to what you would be able to create, not just from a copy and a content perspective, but even from an operations perspective, even from, business growth perspective, client experience perspective. So we've had people who've taken the accelerator and have decided not to use the copywriting skills, but use the others because they want to just use AI to help them run a smoother, faster business. So, point being, the one thing, if you could do one thing right now, is to spend the time to get to know your audience and your business. Start by training Claude or whatever AI you decide to choose on your business, your audience, your brand, your voice, your offers. And when I say audience, I mean all of what we talked about today. Take the time to do that. And that's going to make the biggest difference when it comes to the kind of outputs, the kind of work you can do, and most importantly, the creativity unlocks that you can have when using AI. Because the other thing I always hear is that I'm worried that it's going to, just crush my creativity. No, it's going to help you be more creative because you'll start to look at potential. You'll start to look at, what are the options here. But for all of that to happen, you've got to decide what is it you want to accomplish with AI. Pick the tools that are going to help you do that. And then before you start anything, take the time to really build your buyer brain, your business intelligence library. Do that, and you're like halfway there.
Amazing. And of course, if you need help with doing either of those things, you know exactly who to go to for that support. Where can our listeners continue to connect with you and if they're interested in, again, working with you, whether it's one-on-one or whether it's through your business accelerator, where can they go for that?
So, well, for starters, definitely go ahead, download the Copy Quality Guard and start using that. That would also add you to our email list, so you'll hear from me regularly. But if you'd like to go ahead and connect with me, Instagram would be the best place. We are profitably_yours, or over on our website, profitablyyours.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And again, all of those links will be below in the show notes. And at the very least, download that free copy guard because that alone is going to save you so much in terms of, even if you don't fully understand all the mechanics yet that were talked about today, I think just training your eyes to kind of see what it flags for you is going to allow you to become a more strategic thinker and a more strategic partner with AI. So I'm very, very excited to use this skill. And if you do download it and you utilize it, please reach out to Prerna, thank her personally, make sure you tell her what results you're seeing from utilizing this skill in your business. I know that means so much to our guests when you're utilizing one of their resources, if you can report back on how it's going. So thank you again, Prerna, for joining us today. And thank you all for tuning in. We will catch you in next week's episode.